Hi, this is Kenneth Wong, Senior Editor for Digital Engineering, or DE. Designer brands pledging to make surgical masks and car makers call upon to switch gear to produce ventilators. These reflect the shifting manufacturing priorities during the COVID-19 virus outbreak that threatens many of our loved ones, livelihoods, and familiar industries. Here in California, under a statewide shelter in place order, I am effectively under lockdown. Today, I'm speaking with Keith Meintjes and Joe Barkai, industry veterans and analysts. So, Keith, will you say a few words about your involvement with the automotive sector and introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Keith Meintjes. I spent my career at General Motors nearly 30 years working in simulation. So this is the application of analysis and simulation, physics-based simulation to manufacturing and to product design. And I spent a lot of my time, especially in the latter years, working on strategies to change manufacturing processes and to change engineering processes to better leverage simulation and in effect be more effective in designing and manufacturing products.
Very good. Thank you very much. Joe, welcome as well. And Joe, will you also do the same and introduce yourself, please?
Of course, very happy to do so. So I'm Joe Barkai. I'm an industry analyst and consultant. I'm looking at trends, both micro and macro trends in industry, and try to understand what these trends mean in terms of how companies operate, and specifically how they use technology to meet the challenges of oncoming trends. So it's a very kind of broad, future-looking perspective, and in the context of automotive, I look at everything from connected cars, autonomous vehicles, electrification of vehicles, and again, trying to understand the trends, not so much in terms of pure technology, as much as what does it mean for industry, what does it mean for the manufacturers, what does it mean for the user, what does it mean for society even. And part of this as part of this activity, I'm also chairing the Society of Automotive Engineers Connected Car activity, where again, we're looking at the future of mobility.
Very good. Thank you very much. So first, let's go straight to the heart of the matter. There is a serious shortage of ventilators, and right now it seems the government and the local government and a lot of people are hoping that the car makers, the giant car makers, will come in and solve that shortage problem. I'd like to understand the logical challenges of reconfiguring a supply chain and reconfiguring an assembly line and addressing that need by the car makers. Let me start with you, Joe. Do you think it's something that can easily be done, like let's get up and start running tomorrow, or is there a lot of preparations involved here?
Well, first off, I think that I'm kind of not necessarily quoting, but referring to comments that Governor Cuomo said a couple of nights ago. We do not have time to reconfigure the supply chain. We don't have time to build new assembly lines. We need the ventilators today. Therefore, whatever action that takes place needs to really leverage existing resources, whether physical resources, materials, manufacturing, as well as human resources such as engineering and assembly people, and just get whatever resources we have going now to fulfill the shortage.
Okay, all right. Keith, Joe has made that point that the need is immediate and like right now. Is that something that can be done right now, or is there some car makers that needs to, I don't know, perhaps because they're like big ships that if you're going to switch gear, they need some kind of preparation work involved?
I think that the willingness to switch is not a problem. The practicalities might be that a vehicle is a very large device, a very heavy device, and that a vehicle assembly line is not appropriate for manufacturing something like a ventilator, which I think is much more akin to a refrigerator or some smaller device like that. So it may be that if we were looking for manufacturing facilities, and I'm not sure we are, that looking through the automotive supply chain for people who are doing things like making air conditioners and air compressors and so on, that might be a better place to look for the manufacturing capability. But I do think that we should not discount the fact that American manufacturing has very strong roots or very strong capabilities in supply chain management and in quality assurance. And I think that there's a lot of talent there that could be leveraged to ramp up production of things like ventilators and to make sure that the quality comes up uh, to requirements very quickly so that we can produce these things in, as I understand it, only a few weeks before there will be an absolutely critical need for ventilators.
Let's talk about the supply chain then. Let me come back to you, Joe. Then, are there certain components that people normally use in automotive design and manufacturing that is readily adaptable, that can just easily be used as a component in ventilators? Or are there things that need to be 3D printed or because of a short run supply that is immediately needed? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's possible that automakers have some parts that can be reused, although I wouldn't be very careful here, not having the BOM, bill of materials of a ventilator. I cannot really answer the question directly, but I want to remind our listeners that these are medical devices. And not only are they kind of subject to strict regulations in terms of assembly and quality, they also have different characteristics that perhaps are not affecting a car. Let's take a fan. Car has fans, ventilators certainly have fans. But all of a sudden, the type of ball bearings used for the fan, are there lubricants necessary? You can lubricate a fan in a car. You cannot lubricate a fan that then blows air into a person's lungs. So I don't think we're in a position to really give this kind of answer. But stepping back a little bit, and I think I'm echoing what Keith was saying, there are certain parts that should be considered as candidates, and automotive engineers and manufacturing engineers having the experience can help identify the parts, put them into the assembly process, help with QA and so on. I don't think that an automotive facility is allowed and should be allowed to conduct QA because, again, quality standards in medical equipment are different. The quality engineers on the assembly line do not have the tools, the qualifications, even the necessary certification. But I think that we're talking about something that is a bit more coming together as a new team to help improve supply chain, help improve manufacturing processes, perhaps provide some resources such as machining. And as you said, Kenneth, I think that 3D printing is a great opportunity to create parts that do not exist. But if anyone is seeing this as, okay, we're going to kind of shut down a manufacturing cell and make it build ventilators overnight, that's not the idea at all. The idea is, I think, in so many ways, a bit more on the side of human capabilities and experience than actually parts from a supply chain.
Okay, all right. Keith, let me ask you this then. Are there certain things that typically are needed to make ventilators that are currently not available because of supply chain disruptions due to coronavirus? For example, are there some components that are overseas in China that cannot easily be brought here? Or is that going to be a problem?
I guess, Kenneth, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm not familiar with the medical supply chain, but I will say that we have the expertise. We have capabilities that we didn't have even a few years ago, and I'm thinking of things like using 3D printing to make tooling to then build components for ventilators. So it's quite feasible to very, very quickly create tooling for either plastic injection molding or for metal stamping, and to make that tooling using rapid prototyping, 3D printing. You can do that very quickly and really get the production of components up and running quite quickly. And I think that's, as I said, that's a talent that is fairly widely available in the American manufacturing industry.
All right. How about looking at this crisis and how it compares to the past crisis? So this time I'm going to start with you, Keith. Is the current situation we are in comparable to any other crisis that manufacturing has faced before, and can manufacturing easily bounce back?
I I think that it's different. I think that manufacturing can respond. The only parallel that I'm really aware of is the switchover of American industry during World War II to make vehicles, to make weapons, ammunition, aircraft, and vehicles for the World War II war effort. I'm not aware of any similar situation. And as I think Joe will say that even then we were, switching from building cars to perhaps building Jeeps and so on, and this being a medical crisis more than a war does bring a different set of issues and a flavor to the problems we are facing.
So, Joe, I'll turn to you then. Does this crisis compare to anything in the past manufacturing has tackled before?
Not as far as I know, but I'm not here as an history expert, not even an history, historian, amateur historian. I do want to, though, go back to the roots of the Defense Production Act of 1950 that is invoked today as a way for the president to require businesses to sign contracts or to fill orders that are necessary for national defense. So this act was passed by Congress in 1950, and the purpose there was to respond to the start of the Korean War and direct industries, primarily heavy industry and mining, to provide materials and raw materials and products for the war effort. So there's a little parallel there. I think it's probably not at the scale of World War II manufacturing. So it'll be interesting to see if the president does invoke the Defense Production Act of 1950. As far as I know, and again, I'm not a scholar in this area, this act was invoked a couple of times since the Korean War, such as the post-Cold War era. And I think that very recently there were some issues around not necessarily surveillance, but there was something along the lines of invoking it for other necessary needs that they were perceived at the time as supporting national or critical for national security. But those were very, very small and focused effort, nothing at the scale of World War II or the Korean War.
Okay, all right. Manufacturing has changed quite a lot since World War II or since even the Korean War, of course. Right now, manufacturing is pretty much a globally dispersed activity, no matter what company you are in. You're working with suppliers overseas and you're working with engineers across different time zones. Are we better prepared for a collaboration that is necessary to pull up something very quick in this era compared to the past era? Let me start with you, Keith.
Kenneth, I think the answer to that, of course, is yes. I mean, we have communications. I think that when the history of the coronavirus crisis is written, that the availability of things like the internet communications and so on will figure very prominently in the success of the response to the crisis, much more so than if this were even only 20 years ago. I will also just observe that rapid response to competitive pressures in manufacturing is a reality and has been for some time. And you look at the fact that manufacturers, say a footwear manufacturer, can come out with some new feature and a new product, and their head time is perhaps a month or two before other manufacturers have responded and have similar products on the market. And so I think that that there is the talent out there needs to be leveraged. And just a slightly personal opinion is I think that we see the willingness of the manufacturers to get involved. Ford and GM are both involved with looking at ventilator engineering and production. my sense is that perhaps there's not that much, as much pull as there could be from the authorities, from the government, to say let's get ahead and do this. I think that is perhaps also needed.
Okay. Joe, any thoughts to add to that? Manufacturing's rapid response capability now compared to the past?
Yes, I don't think that in the past we had anything even close to that. In the past, and not that many years ago, manufacturing was much more vertically integrated. So there was a relatively narrow set of capabilities and skills, and they tend to stick with their industry. Manufacturing used to be very local. I mean, the global phenomenon that we're dealing with today, and all the criticism about global supply chain and remote manufacturing and offshore low-cost manufacturing is a present-day phenomenon. But this really gives us the opportunities we're discussing. So now we have global sourcing, we have manufacturing overseas, and I think that going back to the topic of automakers, this is an area that automakers are probably the most sophisticated industry as far as supply chain and logistics. And I think that a lot of the work, the help that they offer us today is along these lines. They can find sources and their buying power that most companies do not have. So I think it's the differences between manufacturing 20 or 40 years ago to today is vast. I want to kind of go back to a comment I made earlier, just to be very precise. I think that the Trump did invoke the Defense Production Act, only he did not activate it. So he has the right to do it any time, but he's not used it yet. So it's not a matter of invoking it as much as a matter of making a decision and instruct industry to take certain actions.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Let me check with each of your situations here. I'm in California. I'm under lockdown, have been so for the past week. How about you, Keith?
I'm in Michigan. We've been under a semi-lockdown for a while. They closed the restaurants, the salons, virtually the gyms, virtually everything except the grocery stores. And just a couple of days ago, we've been put under a stay-at-home order that the only reason you should be on the road is if you're on a trip that involves medical or groceries and food or something like that. But we expect to be under stay-at-home lockdown for another 3 weeks or so.
How about you, Joe? Where are you and what's your situation?
So I'm in Massachusetts, not far away from Boston. The similar situation is very similar. So everything but grocery stores, gas stations, pharmacies it's shut down. Stay-at-home type instruction. So it's same all over. And I've been like this by choice for trying to remember 3 weeks. So I at least in this regard, I feel good because I've been just. So that's the situation here. But luckily, I live in an area that you can go out, so it's not in the middle of the city. So I have enough kind of nature walks and in woods I can walk around.
Very good. So for you, Joe, social distancing will not be a problem, like I sometimes face when I'm in the big city.
No, although correct. No, it's not in the city. Although I have to say that on the one hand, I enjoy seeing so many people that in areas that I don't usually see. I mean, they keep distance, but nature reserve walks, you don't see that many people. Now people perhaps are discovering it. So as we're looking for silver lining, and as we're looking for things that will be better once we are out of this crisis, maybe people will come back to nature and walks and hikes. And they're just discovering them now.
Very good. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining me and giving me your insights to it. I hope we can all stay safe, stay alive together, and get over this crisis very quickly soon.